Hi, welcome to the Discrimination in the Labor Market lecture. And you might have noticed I have shaved myself. Well, basically, I was waiting the quarantine to end. However, recently the barbershops will be open at the 20th of May, but still they won't shave people, so I decided to shave myself. So besides that, I should say, well, the regular thing, this lecture is part of the Gender Economics lecture series, which is a course where feminist economics is introduced. And this lecture series is prepared for the Middle Technical University, Northern Cyprus campus. Well, discrimination is basically, if we define it, it is the different treatment of two people with the same level of productivity. It's a little bit complex subject because we assume we have two individuals with the same level of productivity, although productivity itself can be a complex issue. Usually we are trying to separate the productivity of individuals and try to decide this individual is more productive, this individual is less productive. However, the productivity of the individuals are very much connected, and ironically, actually, in the core labor model, if you remember that model, marginal productivity of the labor, the last worker who joined the labor force, actually depends on number of other people in the labor force. So it is not his productivity; it is the collective productivity will actually determine the marginal productivity of the last worker. And here we pretty much think about the workers' organization. But this workers' organization is pretty much also related to the overall productivity of, well, any worker who joined to the workforce is kind of his or her productivity will depend on his or her place, his or her coordination with this labor organization. So that's the problem with labor productivity, and that's actually mentioned there. But the basic, the most mainstream type of, it's a little bit, discrimination itself is a little bit outside of the mainstream, but the closest mainstream approach to discrimination would be you have two people, same productivity, but they are treated differently, which might mean either one is employed, the other one is not employed, one gets higher wage, the other one gets lower wage, one is promoted, the other one is not promoted. All three are part of the discrimination. In the I might have told in the previous part that the thing I like most with the feminist economics approach to the labor market is the fact that it embraces the heterogeneity of the labor market. I mean, different agents are there with different characteristics. In the last part, especially when we are talking about the mainstream part of the last parts discussion, but also in general, we had, well, typical parameters, typical variables that are defining a typical agent in the labor market, set mostly by mainstream economics, and we basically used those variables themselves to differentiate, to discuss about how there's a cat under me. Come. Okay. Well, she's a little bit disturbing the lecture. I don't know whether you saw it. I think you saw it now, probably. No. Okay. I should deal with it. Anyway, that cat was one of the regular cats of our house. I said neighbors, one of our neighbors. We have two regular cats, that's one of them. It's usually the one that is more, how can I say, like an old person, a little bit more settled, kind of. This cat. Anyway, as I said, last time we started to use the labor market variables, the common labor market variables, and tried to use them to embrace the heterogeneity of the labor market. This time we are aiming to go beyond that in different parts, actually. How those variables might be maybe not enough, how maybe we might go a little bit beyond the regular variables, and the most of this is actually done by the first article, which is a kind of a unorganized article a little bit. It contains some data, some information, but it is unorganized a little bit, so when you read you might be a little bit confused. The second article, Blau's article, in that case is much better, but still it raises an interesting questions and concepts which you can still further look on to answer. So I decided to put that article as a main article because of that. Anyway, in the other three articles, they are still interesting, but they look to the approach in from different aspects. The second one, the Blau's article, is the most encompassing one, where still the mainstream approach to discrimination are there, but even the mainstream approach to discrimination are extending the traditional borders of the labor market, which are seen in the introductory courses at any level, including PhD level. Anyway, well, the video actually is kind of contrasting with the rest of the lecture. It is showing the way discrimination is kind of refuted, or people in the mainstream economics at least are arguing against discrimination using mainstream concepts and also some data and some idea. I mean, they think here they're talking on one form of discrimination only, the wage discrimination, potential possible wage discrimination, and they use the tools to mainstream tools to explain actually why that wage difference exists and how we can see that it is not a result of the discrimination. Watch it, it's an interesting video, you should see it, I believe. And contrast it with the ideas you see in the remaining part of this lecture. As I said, we have 4 articles. This is the first article. That's the chaotic one. This is the second article. That's long. It contains a lot of elements on discrimination. This is the third article, which is actually not on the gender discrimination, but the racial discrimination. But it's a very, very nice research, which is kind of shows, which kind of provides background on information on how actually you can design experiments to test discrimination, and basically it shows basically. I mean, it is a very very creative design, and it shows the discrimination that exists very clearly, although the discussion might still be left on what kind of further information we can get. I mean, how can we process the information provided by this article? We see certainly there is discrimination, but one step further than that needs a little bit more discussion maybe. The fourth article, and I really wanted to add one article on that, it's on the sexual orientation, so basically it's not on the basic gender discrimination, the biological male and biological female case. Rather, it is sexual orientation, like being gay or lesbian, and how that affects the labor market conditions of the people, and whether there's a discrimination. I mean, whether these characteristics are actually making people with the same productivity or making people experience inferior working place conditions, basically, or a kind of obstacle for promotion or getting a higher wage. So, and this is a nice article. This is also a very nice article. Its content can also be expanded in different ways, because it shows actually the idea against the gay people might affect the gay people who might not have actually brought them out even. That's the interesting part of it. I mean, unlike the actual gender, unlike the biological gender, the birth gender case, orientation can be hidden, but even when it is hidden, people might still be feel and affected by the discrimination or the adverse views on the different sexual orientation options, or let me say cases. Anyway, so the first article says, in order to have a complete analysis of the labor market, several different dimensions of this market, like social interaction, short and long-term goals, need to be taken into account, as well as interaction of these markets with other economic spheres. Well, the article mainly says this: the labor market is not a simple thing. It has complexities, and those complexities need to be actually taken into account. They should be added to the analysis if you want to have a complete labor market analysis. And here I should say, I mean, if you make a basic macroeconomic analysis, it's okay to take labor market relatively simple without its all complexities. Even there, actually, what should be in this simple model and what should be left out very much depends on, your knowledge on the more complex version or more full analysis of the labor market. You should be able to have a full analysis of the labor market before you know how to simplify it. But beyond that, just if you think financial market, we know all of those details of many aspects, like if you ever studied on them, for example, derivatives, which is basically you don't buy stocks, but you buy right to buy stocks, basically, which means if the stocks at a fixed price, which means if the stock price is risen, you can buy 10,000 stocks at a low price and sell them and get a lot of money, for example. And there's a whole course or whole topic just on this, basically, for example. And all of the different details, many fine details of the financial markets are actually studied in detail. I think labor market is also interesting, and many fine details of the labor market should also be studied, and more people should be interested in it. And this article gives you some, in an unorganized way again, some complexities of the labor market. Of course, looking at them from a gender approach. Anyway, well, its starting point is pretty much, it is telling that labor markets are intersection of two spheres in the economic system. One is the productive sphere, the basic production done in the markets at social level, and the reproductive sphere, the family sphere. Because basically, labor markets are the institutions where the labor is transformed from reproductive economy to productive economy, and commodities are transferred to the reproductive economy from productive economy. Anyway, we will continue in the next part.